Today we are interviewing Mark Thomas, founder CEO of Coderus, about this year's Worldwide Developer Conference held annually by Apple. So Mark, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to let us interview you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what exactly is WWDC?
Hi. Uh, a little about myself is I started my career developing on Apple technologies and being what they would kind of say is an Apple advocate for over 30 years or more, kind of developing technology. So I started my development back on the Mac Pluses with ThinkC, if anybody remembers that far back, all the way through, and I saw the introduction with Steve, of the iPhone with that, when he introduced that back, 12 years ago. So a little about the Apple Worldwide Developers Conference. It's an event which is very close to my heart. In fact, I probably one of the very few have actually been to that event over 20 times. Over the last years, and lots of my friends always called it was my holiday to kind of go out and go to the Apple Worldwide Developers Conference. Just to give a little bit of what it is, it's Apple's primary developers event of where they announce new technologies for their upcoming releases. Sometimes hardware revisions are mentioned, but not so much recently. And basically, it's they talk about all the new kind of cool OSs and features which are going to be coming this year.
Awesome. So you say that you've been attending WWDC for a very, very long time. So what was different about this year's WWDC in comparison to previous years?
So when I first went to WWDC, I kid you not, there was probably a couple of 1,000 of us, and we would all just kind of sit out the main doors. It's San Jose's convention center. With that, and sat around, and we used to actually sit down in big dinners, and actually we had knives and forks, not like WWDC of the last couple of years, where there's over 5,000, 6,000 attendees, as well as all the Apple, all the press people there. And I kid you not, it is a bit like a circus. It's very entertaining actually going to the conference and you see everything that's going on. Obviously, last year and this year has been very much different. Everything has gone fully virtual, and it's been great to see Apple have, kept up the momentum of delivering their keynotes in that kind of fashion. But also, it's been great to see that, they've also tried to do more things as well with that to make sure that, they engage with their developers, out there, across the world. Because, applying and going, the tickets for Apple Worldwide Developer Conference, they sell out very quickly, and you have to get it very quickly for that to attend that. So lots of developers always want to go to that conference.
Awesome. So for developers who are watching the conference, what can they do to get the most out of what WWDC has to offer?
So obviously, with it being virtual, obviously everybody is watching the sessions, and when I was going to the conferences, I would always tell everybody, make sure you go with a plan. What questions do you want to get answered? So people will probably say, well, how can I do that now? Well, one of the things which has been great of what Apple is doing is that they're keeping their labs and access to all their thousands of engineers, because Apple is always very committed to the Apple Developer Conference, and they make their engineers available. And it's great seeing that you can go in and book those interviews to talk to all the engineers about, how do the new technologies work, but also to understand them some more. And I was talking to some of my team who are actually organizing their lab sessions this week, is that if you can talk to the engineers of how the technology, what were they thinking when they built it, you can then get the best out of that technology. So I always kind of say, yes, the sessions are great, definitely watch them, but go to the labs, go and talk to the engineers. And it's great seeing that you can still do that in that virtual aspect. I look forward to it coming back next year. We all do, coming out of the global pandemic, and seeing this conference come back together, and all the further networking and talking to all your peers and learning from each other with that for going forward. So a conference is very much more than just watching the video sessions.
Awesome. So the keynote, let's get onto the keynote, highlighted a lot of new features. Are there any features in particular that you were a fan of personally?
Oh yeah, definitely. There were lots of great new kind of user features, which coming in across iOS 15, across iOS handsets and iPads, such as the privacy controls. I'm just looking at my notes here because there were lots of them. It's great seeing kind of FaceTime kind of being expanded out. I know there are some apps doing it, but it's nice to actually see that for everybody, for going forward. Some of my kind of more favorite and the things that I enjoy a lot more myself is more on the developer tools aspect. And one thing I thought was really great, and I've been watching it through the Swift Open Organization, is concurrency kind of coming into the language. And one thing, like for me, is writing code with that is very, very important. But it does get complicated to look at it. So if you can simplify how you view it and read it and put it together, it makes people will use that and exploit it a lot more. And the ways that they are doing that is a lot more simpler than Grand Central Dispatch as well for doing that. So it's great to see that as part of the language. And it does remind me of some of the earlier kind of programming languages that I looked at, from transputer development. Back in the 90s, if anybody remembers that time scale. And it's also really, was great to see is, the developer cloud coming from Apple, and kind of seeing that as kind of tools for everybody to use. Because one of the things, especially when you're working in teams, and especially even more so now, we're working virtually together, is to kind of have that kind of pipeline, have all of that sort of aspect together, and have Apple support that. I think it's going to be great, to learn more about that over the coming week, just to see what more things that they put into that. So, from that sort of aspect, that's been great. But yeah, those are kind of two of my favorites, developer more focused.
Awesome. Yeah, I guess from a user point of view, I was actually quite intrigued by, the health app, being able to share your data with your GP. I think that's great. When I lived in the United States, my GP had an app where you were able to kind of access your records and your GP. But when I came to the UK, it was slightly different. Like, it's not kind of universal, and hospitals pick and choose. But it's nice that they're giving users the option to do that anyway, especially with health tracking and everything. Also, the additional features inside of the health app, especially the balance and mobility and things like that. I think it's going to be massively, it's going to change people's lives.
Yeah. Definitely, and especially kind of sharing that information. I think that's kind of great, for looking after your children, but also, your parents, and having all that information kind of shared around. And I think, Apple has really got it nailed when it comes down to the privacy. Love or kind of hate the position, but kind of you're now in control of the information you're sharing and what you're going to share. I think that's really important. So it kind of really empowers, iOS users, to share that data and for them to trust the data that they're sharing. They know what they're sharing with their doctors. Or I'm kind of interested to see, and I know that they mentioned identity cards coming to the wallet, to see driver's licenses coming in and passports maybe as well. So it'd be interesting to see those things come down the pipe as well in the coming months.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the features discussed in the keynote was the ability to unlock your door using your phone. So what would you say to users who are concerned about their smart devices being hacked, and what kind of measures does Coderus put in place when your team is creating connected devices and IoT products?
So like Apple, we take, users' privacy and security hugely important to us. We have development processes all based around things like OSWASP, and was it 27001, where we built very tight security controls during that development. as part of, we try to break our own code. So, we do things, we actually try hacking our own code through the QA team. So we'll look at things like sniffers and aspects in that fashion to actually see, how easy would it be for a hacker to try to go in and break the code that we've written. So, what I'd say to users is like, what's being kind of put out there, and with that, you'll be fine and you will be able to trust it. You can see it kind of coming down, from all the different providers with the likes of Ring and, name your favorite kind of, Yale, kind of key company that are kind of bringing in these technologies and integrating it into HomeKit. Because, it is being kind of thought about, roll-in certificates, high encryption. It's bringing all those things in there into that solution. Because, kid me not, Apple is not going to want to know that HomeKit is being hacked. They will throw everything behind it. And I know a few of the engineers and the security guys behind Apple, and they really throw a lot of, thought into the processes which they build.
Yeah, I know, like the Apple App Store is as well one of the most difficult stores to get your app actually published. Like, it goes through quite a stringent review process, so much so that no app on the Apple App Store can have the same name as another app. It is very strict, so you can imagine that their privacy and their security controls would be just as strict. So,
definitely, those guys. I appreciate the App Store gets a lot of heat, for rejecting an app and why. But talking to those guys, I've worked with them, and I kid you not, they've got like a big old booklet, which is they go through and make sure everything is kind of put into place. But they are thinking about the users all the way through to give them the best experience, and also apps which build in the app ecosystem.
Awesome. Well, thank you for letting us speak to you today. We'll be doing a follow-up video on the State of Union specifically. So everyone who's watching this, make sure that you like and subscribe to Coderus. But Mark, do you have any additional thoughts or comments?
No, I was going to say just drink plenty of coffee, book in those sessions. They get pretty late, but enjoy Dub during the week, and watch the recaps, and enjoy.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Mark, and we will see you later.
Definitely.